Would you believe it if someone told you that an 80-year-old wealthy woman married a 25-year-old poor man? And not just the marriage. The truth that came out only 7 days later shocked everyone. Many said it was greed. Others claimed it was all a publicity stunt. But when the secret of that night came to light, the world went silent. What unfolded challenged every notion about money, emotions, age, and truth. This is not just a love story. It's a journey of pain, suspense, and redemption. Meet Kwame, a 25-year-old young man with the weight of an entire family on his shoulders. After his father passed away, every responsibility, from his ailing mother's medication to his sister's education, fell on him. His mother, Mama Essie, was battling a serious illness, and all of Kwame's savings had been exhausted on her treatment. His younger sister, Afia, was still in school. Her books, tuition fees, uniforms, everything was now Kwame's burden. Despite his young age, life had aged him before his time. He studied by day and worked by night, doing petty jobs and side gigs. And still, his family lived hand to mouth. The stress was visible in the form of dark circles under his eyes and a heaviness in his heart. He often sat at a small tea stall, flipping coins in his palm, counting if he could afford even a cup of chai. That's when he saw her, a woman, standing across the road, dressed in a rich sari adorned with heavy jewelry and radiating authority. She wasn't ordinary. Her name was Madame Abeni, a tycoon in the business world. She walked up to him, looked directly into his eyes, and asked, "Are you Kwame Verma?" Kwame replied in a tired voice, "Yes, that's me." Abeni spoke gently but clearly. "I know everything about your life, your mother's sickness, your debts, your sister's dreams." Kwame stared, stunned. How do you know all this?" "I can change your fate," she said, "but you'll have to give me something in return." "What?" he asked. "Marry me." Kwame could barely believe what he had just heard. "Marry you?" he repeated, as if the words were in a language he didn't understand. Madame Abeni nodded. "Yes, a proper legal marriage. No games, no tricks. I will cover your mother's medical treatment, your sister's school fees, and clear all your debts. But in return, I ask only for your hand in marriage." Kwame was stunned. I don't even know you. This feels like something out of a film." Her tone didn't change. "This is no drama, Kwame. I'm serious. My proposal is clear and honest." His mind spun. It felt wrong, but everything she was offering was everything he desperately needed. And yet, it felt too good to be true. She added, "I will never interfere with your personal space. You will have your freedom. All I ask is that you respect our marriage. That's all." Kwame walked away that day without saying anything. He couldn't sleep that night. His mother's condition was worsening. The doctors were asking for advance payments. Afia was close to being expelled for unpaid fees. The rent was overdue. Debt collectors had started visiting their home. After 2 days of mental torture, Kwame showed up at Madame Abeni's office. In a voice heavy with exhaustion, he said, "I'm ready." Without delay, Madame Abeni arranged everything. Legal documents were signed, witnesses were present, the marriage was registered. The ceremony was small and silent. No music, no celebration, just a transaction that would soon turn into a journey neither of them expected. It was the first time Kwame had entered such a grand estate. The mansion was enormous, with polished floors, velvet drapes, chandeliers hanging like floating stars, and a calm that almost felt haunted. The place was filled with servants, but none spoke unless spoken to. They followed instructions without question. The walls were decorated with elegant paintings. Every corner told stories of wealth, but also strangely of loneliness. He was guided to his room, not a shared room, but a luxurious guest suite of his own. "This will be your private space," Madame Abeni said. "You may live here on your terms. I won't interfere unless you wish to speak to me." Kwame was overwhelmed. The bed was bigger than the room he grew up in. The bathroom looked like something from a movie. But despite the splendor, something about the mansion made him uneasy. There was a strange quietness. And then he noticed something else. At the far end of the second floor was a large wooden door with golden carvings. It was always locked. 2 housemaids were always around it, dusting, sweeping, but no one ever opened it. Kwame asked one of the staff, "What's behind that door?" The staff member looked down and replied quickly, "It's not a place you're allowed to go, sir." Days passed in the mansion, but Kwame couldn't shake off a strange feeling. Though he was surrounded by luxury, a coldness hung in the air. Madame Abeni remained polite and distant. They dined together silently at a long table that felt more like a negotiation desk than a place for meals. Every now and then she asked, "Is your mother improving, or has Afia settled in school?" Kwame would nod, express his thanks, and the conversation would end there. There was no personal connection, no laughter, no familiarity. Meanwhile, his mother, Mama Essie, had indeed begun recovering. Her treatment had started at one of the best private clinics in the city. Afia had returned to school. Uniforms, books, fees, everything had been handled. Debt collectors had stopped calling. On paper, life had changed for the better. But Kwame's soul wasn't at peace. That door upstairs haunted him. Sometimes at night, he thought he heard whispers or soft sobs behind it. But whenever he asked the staff, they either went quiet or changed the subject. One evening, while walking past the second-floor corridor, Kwame noticed the young maid named Zara coming out of the hallway quickly, holding a tray. She looked startled when she saw him. Kwame asked, "Were you in that room?" She dropped her eyes and shook her head. "No, sir. I was just cleaning the corridor." He didn't press her further, but now he knew someone or something was inside that room, and he was determined to find out. One quiet evening, Kwame gathered the courage to speak to Madame Abeni directly. "Can I ask you something?" he said as they sat in the drawing room. She nodded. "That locked room upstairs, what's in there?" For a moment, her expression didn't change, but her eyes dimmed slightly. She set down her cup of tea and said, "Some doors are locked for a reason, Kwame." "I understand," he replied, though he clearly didn't. Madame Abeni stood up and said calmly, "You are free to live here comfortably. Just don't look for answers that may hurt you." And with that, she walked away, her slippers making no sound on the marble. Kwame's curiosity only deepened. That night, he couldn't sleep. The image of the locked door floated in his mind like a puzzle begging to be solved. He had already accepted that he didn't know everything about his mysterious wife. But now he needed to know why she had married him, and what lay behind that forbidden door. Late at night, when the mansion was still and silent, Kwame crept out of his room. Guided only by the dim hallway lights, he made his way toward the forbidden door on the second floor. His heart pounded with every step. A strange chill seemed to hang around that corridor. To his surprise, the door was slightly ajar. Kwame paused. He looked around. No one. He gently pushed the door open and stepped inside. The room was dimly lit by a single lamp in the corner. On one side stood an old bookshelf stacked with diaries and framed photographs. On the opposite wall hung an oil painting of a younger Madame Abeni standing beside a tall man. Kwame moved closer. He gasped. The man in the photo looked just like him, his father. There was no mistaking it. It was a picture of his late father, much younger, with his arm around Abeni. They looked close, too close. Before he could take in more, he heard soft footsteps behind him. He turned sharply. Madame Abeni was standing there. Her face was calm, unreadable. She stepped into the room and closed the door behind her. "You weren't supposed to see this yet," she said. Kwame, breathless, asked, "What is this? That's my father. Why do you have his photo?" She sat down slowly on the edge of a small couch. "Because many years ago I loved him, before he married your mother." Kwame staggered back. "You loved him?" "Yes," she said. "We were in a relationship for years, but he left me, chose someone else. I was heartbroken. I never married. I built everything, this empire, this mansion, to bury that pain." "Then why? Why did you marry me?" he asked, his voice breaking. She looked into his eyes. "Because you look just like him. I wanted to know, could the son give me what the father couldn't? Love, loyalty, redemption." Kwame felt like the ground had disappeared beneath his feet. The woman he had married, the one who saved his family, who changed his life, had done so not out of charity or love, but because of an old heartbreak with his father. "You used me," he whispered, his voice heavy. Abeni remained calm. "At first, yes, I thought maybe through you I could ease the ache your father left behind. But then something changed." Kwame turned away, trying to process it all. "I never imagined I would care for you," she said softly. "But your kindness, your integrity, your quiet strength, it reminded me that I was still human. My hatred melted, my revenge faded. I looked forward to our dinners, your quiet nods, even your silence." Kwame didn't speak for a long while. Finally he asked, "Then why didn't you tell me? Why hide this? Because I was afraid, she said. Afraid that once you knew, you'd leave, and I would lose the only good thing I had had left. Over the next few weeks, the distance between them slowly shifted. For the first time, they sat and talked, really talked, about her past, his childhood, her loneliness, his fears. What had started as a marriage of convenience began to feel like an emotional partnership. Kwame started helping with her charity foundation. She encouraged him to study again. He enrolled in an architecture course online. She watched him design his first home sketch after years, tears quietly rolling down her cheeks. Abeni's health began to decline. She hid it at first, but soon it became obvious. The doctor confirmed it, a terminal illness. No treatment would save her. One rainy afternoon, while lying on her recliner, she reached for Kwame's hand. Promise me, when I'm gone, you won't let my name die in regret. I promise, he said. As weeks passed, Madame Abeni's condition worsened. Her walks in the garden became short glances through windows. Her voice grew softer, her steps slower. But one thing remained the same. Her eyes still sparkled when Kwame entered the room. She gave him access to everything, her businesses, her bank accounts, her foundation. She called it trust, but it was more than that. It was her way of saying sorry. On her final night, the rain poured outside like the sky itself was mourning. Kwame sat beside her bed, holding her fragile hand. I never wanted to hurt you, she whispered. I know, he replied. I didn't just marry you because of your father, she said, tears in her eyes. I stayed because of you. Kwame kissed her forehead. Thank you for everything. With a weak smile, she exhaled. And just like that, Madame Abeni, the woman who lived through betrayal, built an empire, and found peace, closed her eyes forever. After her funeral, Kwame didn't collapse. Instead, he rose. He poured all his grief into the Abeni Trust Foundation, a home for young women without shelter, education, or hope. He transformed the mansion into a sanctuary, each room named after a chapter in Abeni's life. He built schools in her name, started housing projects, launched medical camps in underprivileged towns. Afia completed her studies and joined him in managing the foundation. Mama Essie, now healthy, spent her time teaching village children how to read. Years passed. Kwame became known not just as a young man who married a wealthy woman, but as a man who turned sorrow into service. He married Zara, the maid who had stood by silently during every twist and turn. Together, they raised 2 children who knew the story of Abeni by heart. Every year, on the day of Abeni's passing, the mansion holds a candlelight vigil. Women who were once broken return to speak about how their lives changed because of one woman's journey. Kwame stands beneath her portrait and says, she didn't die with bitterness in her heart. She died with love. She didn't just give me shelter, she gave me purpose. And the mansion, once locked in silence, now echoes with hope, laughter, and healing. Sometimes life brings strangers together for reasons the heart doesn't understand at first. What begins as a transaction may end in transformation, and even those born out of pain can become the source of healing for others. If you enjoy stories like this, simple tales filled with life's quiet lessons, make sure you follow this channel and turn on your notifications. A new story is on its way very soon, and trust me, you won't want to miss it. Thank you so much for spending your time here with me. Until next time, stay kind, stay hopeful.